What's up, everybody? This is robot number 7 for Mega Man 4 80% speedrun tutorial here that I've been working on this past week and a half or so, I suppose. And we're going to talk about Drill Man. Very... I mean, I don't really know what to necessarily say with regard to the RNG of this, other than Drill Man is probably the second worst boss in the game when it comes to RNG. I'm actually going to show the difference between a good fight and a bad fight. It's kind of funny because in my beginner tutorial that you're going to see here first, I actually get a pretty good pattern from Drill Man. And you can see the splits here on the beginner show a time of 159.4. And if I actually open up my intermediate splits here for a second, I have a 203.8. So that alone shows you about how my stage strats are actually faster. You see the 1 minute and 11.9. I go back to beginner, 1 minute and 18.7. And yet I end the fight like 4 whole seconds faster in my beginner strats because of just the boss pattern. And that's just a good example of showing how much time loss can come from this guy. Typically, you don't see in a properly executed fight, you typically won't see more than 2 dives from Drill, but you definitely can get more than that, and it's just really bad luck if you do. Each dive costs roughly 4.3 seconds, so you want to really try to minimize the time he's not in iframes, because you want Drill Man to be basically killed as soon as possible. The longer the fight lasts, the more opportunity you give him to dive. Every time he comes out of the ground, you should be getting a minimum of 2 hits, which I'll talk about when we get into the fight. But for the time being, let's focus on just the stage, and we'll get sort of talking about the fight and the RNG when we get to the boss fight. So let's watch the beginner strats here, and then we'll talk about the screens. All right, let's go back and let's talk about this this stage. Okay, so first off, there's always going to be this Met kill at the beginning. So you're going to do 1 full slide. After you do this 1 slide, this Met is going to open up once you get a little bit closer. So what I recommend doing is, if you're having issues with bullet slides yet, you can just walk forward and kill this Met, or you can do a bullet slide. That's a little bit more advanced strat, but it's not that bad. But you can just walk forward like that and kill him, and then mash or slide through him if you want. But after that second slide, you're going to want to pause here and change to bright. So the idea here is you don't want to flash this room until this Met starts to open. Remember in Dive Man, there's a few times where we purposely freeze the room after the Met starts to open. That way we can actually kill him. So I'm going to freeze the room at this specific spot so that I can kill both the copter head and the Met. You know, if you can't kill them obviously in one jump like that, you can jump up a couple times, whatever it takes just to kill them. Get them out of the way so you can jump up the stairs and climb the ladder. Same with this room. Typically you want to freeze this guy again once he's at this height. If he gives you the big jump, it's really easy, but if he gives you a short jump, you want to freeze him again so that he's got this one tile gap here. That allows you to be able to slide under him. If you mistime your flash stopper, it's not that big a deal. Just mash him down if you're really worried about HP and you don't want to deboost through him. So if you do miss this, like I said, just kill him and jump to the ladder and move on. But if you can slide forward, make sure you slide cancel though, because you could potentially slide into him depending on how close he is. So just slide and then like stop right in front of him, do a easy slide cancel like you're sliding underwater, and then do a full slide underneath him like I did there. And that'll guarantee that you don't come out of your slide when you're underneath him and get hit. Here again, we're gonna freeze this Met right as he opens. So as soon as he opens up, I wanna press B to freeze him, and then I'm gonna kill him here. And then I'm gonna take an intentional deboost from this Met so that I can use my iframes to slide through the rest of the enemies here. So it's pretty straightforward. A lot of the movement in this is pretty easy. It's just flash stopper and then try to slide as much as possible. Now this room is one of the first sort of scary ones. So you've got a lot of spikes here. Now, again, if you're not comfortable doing the slide jumps where you want to slide with like Mega Man's hand, visual cue kind of thing that I talked about in the general mechanics video, then for beginners, I just recommend coming into this room and just do small jumps. You can even, if you really want to play it safe, jump high here on purpose to get hit by this bat, and then you have iframes for these first couple jumps, and that makes it super safe. But if you're trying to avoid damage, you don't want to do that. If you do get hit a couple times and you're really worried, you can always take this health, but it's a little slow, but it is there if you want to take it. The bats have two different patterns. They can stay closed for a longer period or a shorter period. This one I got here, this is the shorter period. So by the time I'm already here, they're opening up and moving. The other pattern is the potential is they stay closed longer, which means you'll get to this spot and this guy will still remain closed. If that's the case, just slide into him, take the damage and fall down and then try to move on. You really don't want to shoot in here because you don't want to waste any flash stopper. You can if you're really concerned about health, but typically you don't want to waste any flash stopper in here. You will have a little bit of extra at the end of this, so if you're not worried about going through all your ammo, go for it. But the nice thing about these beginner to intermediate strats is if you can practice not using it here, that will actually help you maintain more flash stopper for the end of the stage. And then when you start to move on to the intermediate strats, you'll be able to do the flash stopper in the final screen, which is actually really quick. So try not to use any here. Just wait for this guy to get out of your way or just deboost through him if he doesn't move. Drop down here, walk across here. Just make your jumps really careful. Now, when you jump into this room, don't hold left here. Because if you hold left here, as you see, there's a set of spikes that's right below there. So you want to be a little bit to the right. You only have to be like 1 or 2 pixels away from this wall, and then your toe will catch this ledge. But if you're really being overly cautious and you want to play it super safe again, just hold right a little bit and like play it, like look how safe I am. I'm way over this step, so I know I'm going to be okay. And then don't hold... Be very careful here. So something I do is I over-exaggerate my input on this screen. I do not hold left until I hit the ground and then jump. It guarantees that I don't move too far left and fall onto these spikes too soon before I get my jump off. Here you can do a free slide here. You don't have to worry about falling on these. As long as you hold left off of this, you will hit this platform. So what I do in this video, I actually slide off this and jump and do a full jump into the screen transition. But you can also do a slide off this onto here and then a slide off this down into the screen transition as well if you really want to do that. It's perfectly fine. Either really works. The only reason that this is slightly faster to slide off this and then jump all the way into the screen transition is you speed up your vertical fall speed sooner. Therefore, you hit this screen transition a little faster. But it's very minor time save. So if you're not if you're not comfortable doing this jump or worried about it, just remember, as long as you slide off this and hold left, you'll land here and you can slide down again. So I do the jump, but you don't have to do that. Okay, so now in this room, we want to freeze the screen as soon as these copter heads start coming on screen. So as soon as this guy appears, I want to freeze the screen. I'm just going to jump up and kill him to get rid of him. That way I don't have to worry about jumping into him. I'm going to jump across. Now this is one place that I think you really should slide, even on a beginner. There is spikes here, but you have plenty of time here to practice or time to time your jump out of this slide. So just slide to the edge here. And look how I even jumped out of my slide really early, like back here instead of right here, and do a bigger jump, and I still make it with relative ease. Just if you're really, really worried about that, you don't have to slide there, but I actually recommend trying to throw this one in because it is a little risky, but it's definitely a lot easier than the one right here, which is as soon as you land, you want to shoot two shots to kill this copter head. But notice I'm holding right the whole time, so now this is a lot shorter one. So I just recommend walking and jumping on that one if you're going to be worried about killing the copter. And then here you just want to jump up the stairs. Don't worry about this guy's hitbox. It's actually below the floor as long as the enemies are still frozen on screen. And then shoot that guy twice, and then slide and jump up the stairs. Okay, so this turret room, there's going to be 3 turrets that spawn. One here, one on here, and one on here. We want to try to freeze this screen on the frame that it opens up. So when this room spawns, those turrets spawn open every time. If they close, then they become invulnerable. So the idea here is to freeze the room on like the frame or a couple frames that the screen becomes active. Those first frames, those turrets remain open. So what I really recommend for newer runners is as you're coming into this screen, just mash B. And you're going to see... You see, I flashed the room and I shot some extra shots. I do lose some time because when I shoot on a ladder, I get sort of stuck on the ladder. But you're better off to try to freeze the turrets like this in the open position than to not freeze them and get them closed. Or even worse, have bullets on screen. So what I recommend is coming into the screen, just mash. You're going to fail the trick doing that every once in a while, but it'll be a lot more consistent for you as you start this run. Now that the room is frozen, all I have to do is jump up and shoot these guys. And they only take 1 shot. So just jump up and shoot them. If you're not comfortable again with slides, these short slides, I wouldn't do this since there's spikes right here. And just walk up here, shoot the next one as you jump up. Or if you want to play that even safer, you can stop here, jump up, shoot him, and then kill him, and then land and then jump up after he's already dead. Depends on how comfortable you are with some of these like jumping and shooting kind of techniques if you're new to the game. And then just walk up, jump, grab the ladder, and climb up. Okay, so now this is the checkpoint room. So that's where the danger of this stage lies. Because this stage is actually, like the checkpoint is so far into the stage, some of those earlier slide jumps and stuff that I talked about become kind of scary because you're in a room where if you die to spikes, you go all the way back to the beginning of the stage. And because you use a lot of bright ammo in this stage, sometimes that can be really, really bad. Remember, I did talk a little bit about, I think it was in either the Dust tutorial or the Skull one, about eddy drops and about how you can get E-tanks. This is the E-tank that I was talking about. If you're really concerned and you really want to have an E-tank available to you, this one in this checkpoint room is the one you want to grab. So your best bet would be to change to balloon and then jump up, grab the E-tank, and then switch back to bright or buster, depending on what you want to do this room with. I would recommend bright, though, because the roly-polies can be kind of annoying in this room. But this is the one you want to grab if you really want an E-tank and Eddie didn't give you one in the previous stages. Because there's no more Eddies in the 8 robots. There's no Eddie in Toadman stage. So if you didn't get an E-tank before this stage and you really want one, grab this one here. So just change to balloon, grab it, and then change back to bright. It's a very, very quick one to grab. Okay, so for this room, assuming though for the strat of the room, what you're going to do is you're going to freeze the room, and we're going to just try to slide here. We're going to do, if you can, try to do bullet slides, like what I just did where I shot into my slide. because then you can get some extra hits on this guy as you're still moving fast towards him. But if you don't want to do that, you can just slide towards him, mash him 3 times, and then move on. Jump up the stairs, and every time you jump up these stairs, just land in front of the roly-polies, shoot them 3 times, land in front of them, shoot them 3 times, shoot them 3 times. It's a pretty straightforward room. Basically, you just want to land in front of them, shoot them, land in front of them, shoot them, land in front of them, shoot them. It's nothing too crazy. Now, if they come unfrozen, you do still have one more flash stopper. You can still refreeze them, and everything's okay. Because for the beginner strats, what I'm going to recommend is you actually change off of Bright for this room. I actually would recommend for a really new runner of this game to use Skull. So this is going to cause some extra lag, and obviously it's an extra menu because you have to change weapons again. But Skull makes this room really trivial. So what you're going to do is just press B and keep Skull Shield active. This is going to protect you from these rocks that fall. Skull Crusher will one-shot the rocks, as well as these flying enemies here. So basically what you should do is hit B and always have a Skull Crusher active, so that when these fall, they just get eaten up. See how I put another one out? I'm going to kill... I could kill that guy if I want, but I don't really need to. Make sure, again, this is sort of the weird thing with the stage. You got these switches here. Make sure that you're hitting these switches so that the next part of the stage loads. I have to make sure that Mega Man's hitbox touches the hitbox of the switch. They're pretty easy to hit. They're not that hard to hit. I mean, the hitbox on it is pretty large, actually, and I'll show you that in the advanced strats, actually, later in the other tutorials. But Skull Crusher is really easy. Just take your time. Let it take care of the enemies. Here, you want to make sure that after this rock is destroyed, make sure you press B again before you jump, because that enemy is going to be in your way mid-jump. So you want to make sure you press it again before this jump here. And then one more, that'll take care of the last rock, and all the way to the boss door. So this is a pretty easy way to get through this stage. You're basically abusing Flash Stopper and then Skull Crusher in the last screen. And it basically means that you should be able to get to Drill Man very close to full health. You might have to take some damage on the bats or the Met or whatever else, but for the most part, you should be very high health, which is very good because this fight can be really tricky, especially if Drill Man decides to give you the pattern where he runs at you, which is actually the pattern that you want. You either want him to be jumping around or you want him to be walking and shooting drills at you, and that's the best pattern because if he starts to dive, sure, it's easy to dodge and you can live easily. However, that's the pattern you don't want because you're going to lose a lot of time. So I mentioned at the beginning of the fight, or at the beginning of the video here, that every time Drill Man dives, you're going to lose 4.3 seconds. So just like every other boss in this game, though, Drill Man will 100% start with the same pattern, and that is a dive. So this dive will always happen. Now, my trick here is, a lot of people, I don't know, everybody sort of has their own sort of technique for this fight. But what I do for this fight is I use buffer jumps. And what I mean by that is I'm going to be jumping while Drill Man is underground. I do full A input jumps. And it's a way for me to keep track of a timing of when he's going to come back out of the ground. So basically what I do is the moment Drill Man's sprite disappears into the ground, so right there, this is my visual cue. I'm going to start doing jumps. I'm going to do 4 full jumps. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I land. Now I know Drill Man is going to be coming out of the ground right away. So as soon as I land here, I'm going to jump to the right, and that will cause him or me to be able to dodge him. He's going to come up right here. And because I'm still on Skull, I actually, for a newer runner, I recommend changing to dive probably before entering the fight. But I'm going to change to dive now because, you know, I'm mid-fight, and I want to hit him with my first shot while he's still coming out of the ground. So this is why the buffer jump strat is very important, because I don't want to be hitting him when he comes up and lands. I want to hit him as he's coming out of the ground. So I have to know when to jump and shoot before I actually see him come out of the ground. I actually need to be jumping and getting ready to shoot him like before I even see him. So that's why the buffer jump strat is very sort of important to this. It doesn't have to be the same one that I use. I know Almond City has a 5 jump buffer pattern that he uses. So everybody's got their own sort of thing. As long as you know exactly when he's going to come out of the ground, that's the most important part. So you can do 4 or 5 or whatever you feel comfortable with. But the idea here is I want to manipulate him in a way so that he comes out of the ground and I'm ready to shoot him immediately. Now, the thing with Dive Missile, I don't know how much experience that you necessarily have with this game, but Dive Missile typically tracks to an enemy and homes in on them. So it's like a homing missile. The problem is, though, is because this is an NES game, the different directions that it can arc around in to track are very limited. Obviously, it can go left, right, up, down, and then the diagonals, up, right, down, right. So if the missile is off sort of a bit on with relation to the target it's trying to track, sometimes the missile has a really hard time coming around to hit the enemy. So basically, something to combat that is a lot of times missile will come out and then arc immediately. So what you want to do is actually you want to try to hit Drillman from slightly above his position. And this will mean that the missile will come out and then track down into his hitbox. If you don't do that, sometimes missile will shoot straight out, start to track up, and it will actually go all the way around him and miss him completely and then come back and hit him. So basically what you want to do is prevent that from happening. So you want to shoot it out straight and then let the track down to his hitbox, and that will hit him really consistently. So basically, I've done my buffer jumps. He comes out of the ground. I want to jump up, turn, shoot him this one time. And then you see I do my jump. Now I'm going to shoot my second shot, and it's going to come out and track down. So you see that it happened. Now I've got a walking pattern. This is really good. So basically this means the drill is going to walk all the way across the screen, and he's going to shoot drills at me at his certain intervals. Now, if you are having troubles jumping over Drillman and dodging his drills, because this is a really tough fight, it does take a lot of practice. 100% always, if you're going to take a hit off the drill. His body does 8 damage and his drills do 3. So if you've got a lot of HP, just get hit by the drills. He's going to shoot one at you anyway, so you can guarantee that you can walk a little bit and he'll shoot one at you, and then you can just walk through him while you're in iframes for free. But if you want to try to do the dodging, just sort of like turn and shoot him. Try to shoot your missiles again in a way that they can track down to hit him. See, I'm jumping up to shoot him so that it tracks down like that. Even there, the missile went all the way around to hit him. So sometimes they still track kind of funny. But they should always be tracking slightly downward. I shot that one the wrong direction, but you can see that the idea is to shoot them so that they try to track down into his hitbox. The other reason why that's good is because you want to be jumping over the drill shots anyway. So you see, again, as I'm shooting him, I'm jumping over the drills in a way that hopefully I'm dodging them as well as tracking in my missiles into his hitbox. Again, you saw I got hit, but I only took 3 damage because it was just a hit by the drill. So this fight is going to take a lot of practice because there's a lot going on. My biggest advice for this is try to get to the end of the stage with enough HP so that if you're really struggling with dodging him, just take the hit on the drills, like I said, and don't bother about trying to worry about jumping over him. Just get hit by a drill and let him run like through you while you have iframes, and then he won't hit you. Or jump, or when you get hit, just try to get to the other side of him as he's walking. And you notice that I try to manipulate him to come out of this side and land here so that if he does decide to walk, he has to walk the maximum distance. That allows me to get as many hits in as I can before he decides to either walk across again or to dive. And again, we're just trying to minimize the amount of dives the Drillman can give. So yeah, like there's a lot going on again, but this fight is kind of difficult, but it's pretty straightforward once you sort of get the idea. Okay, so I'll talk a little bit more about the RNG of the fight in the intermediate tutorial, because that's the one where I actually do get a bad pattern, and you're going to see the buffer jump strat used a lot and sort of get an idea of how it works. So let's go ahead and now watch the intermediate strats for Drillman stage. I'm going to get the splits up, and then we'll take a watch. Okay, so let's go back and let's look at these different screens. There's gonna be a lot of similar strats again, but now again, just like a lot of the other stages, it just comes down to a little bit more optimal movement. So again, we're still gonna kill that Met, but this time instead of changing to Bright here, we're actually gonna kill these enemies with Buster here so that they get out of our way. We're still gonna be changing to Bright, but the nice thing about killing these guys with Buster is you can actually change to Bright on a ladder, which guarantees that your menu, your movement after the menu will be frame perfect, which is kind of nice. So you're just gonna kill that guy and then jump up and kill this Met at the same time. And then get up here, grab the ladder, and you're gonna menu over to Bright. So that guarantees again that your first input after the menu, because all you have to do is hold up, you will guarantee to have a frame perfect movement out of that menu. It's kind of nice, little time save. This room, exactly the same. As soon as this guy jumps, he gives you a better jump this time that he did in the beginner tutorial. So you just freeze him anytime he's up there, slide underneath him, grab the ladder, and move on. Again, as soon as this Met opens, freeze the room, jump up and kill him, and then we're gonna deboost again through all these enemies, slide through. Nothing too different here. Again, in this room, we're gonna just jump across, but this time we're gonna do some sliding. We're gonna slide here and do some nice little time save slide jumps. We got a good pattern here. The bat opened, and you notice I actually did a kind of big jump here. That's on purpose. So normally a large jump like that would be not optimal because you're not landing on this platform to slide sooner. But the thing is you want to actually manipulate this bat to move upward. And so if he opens and you're up here, he moves up, and that allows you to slide underneath without getting hit. You can also do a strat where you do a smaller jump and then the bat opens and then you slide under him, but he hits you and you get knocked down. But unfortunately, that's about 10 frames slower. So you want to try to actually manipulate this bat to move up so that you can slide underneath him and then go down here like that and slide and move into the transition. Now, again, staying away from this left edge so that we don't fall directly on the spikes. We're going to land on that ledge and then slide jump into the next screen. Now, I'm going to freeze this screen immediately. That's going to make sure that this first copter head, as he spawns in, is not going to move. And that allows me to just jump without needing to even jump up and kill him. I can jump and land here underneath him without needing to even shoot him. You can still kill him if you feel like that's still a tight jump and you don't want to land on these spikes. But for an intermediate runner, I think you should be able to make this jump. It's a pretty easy 2-tile jump, and it's not that hard to actually get past this guy without getting hit by him. As long as you freeze the screen before he spawns. If you freeze the screen after he spawns, you're going to need to kill him because he's going to move a little bit to the left and you'll just jump into him. So make sure that if you're going to do this jump without killing him, you have to freeze it before he spawns on the screen. And then you can do a bullet slide here because this guy's going to spawn and then do another bullet slide when you land on this one. And that will kill him because they only have 2 HP. Then slide up here. Again, another bullet slide and another bullet slide to kill that one up there. Just like the beginner strat, we're going to mash to try to freeze this room. And we got it. You notice that these guys are all frozen and they're all open and no bullets are on screen. So we did that right. This time we're going to jump up and we're actually going to do a short slide here and jump up and kill this guy. Ideally, you would also slide on this one. I think I get a drop. Yeah, so that drop eats my slide input, but still, that's fine. This room, if you're going to do these slide jumps, jump up and kill and slide jump and slide jump, be very aware of drops, especially at this first turret. I actually even recommend, even sometimes for an intermediate runner, to maybe cut this slide out, because if you get a drop here and it eats your jump, you're going to slide off and fall onto the spikes and die. And the checkpoint room is on the other side of this ladder. So you really don't want to die in this room. It's basically going to be run over for somebody who's going for a pretty decent time. So if you are struggling or you're scared of a drop here and you're on, like, let's say a really good pace run, just don't slide on this one. Just cut it out and you can jump up, walk and jump up and still slide on this one if you want. But if you're on pace where it's like you're even and you might as well go for it. So I put it in this one because I think it is something people should be able to go for. Again, jumping up here, you're gonna see here, I'm actually gonna freeze the screen as soon as I enter this screen. And I'm gonna jump and I'm gonna do 3 bullet slides. 1, 2, 3. That kills this first roly-poly without me having to stop my movement to mash him down. And then here, same as before, just jump up, mash, jump up, mash, jump up, mash, mash, and we're through. Okay, so now, instead of using Skull for this room, we're gonna use Flash Stopper. So you notice as soon as I come out of my slide, I'm gonna do basically a bullet slide, except instead of shooting, it's gonna flash the screen and we're gonna slide. Now, the key to this room, it's a very long room, and Flash Stopper, like we talked about in a lot of other tutorials so far, is it is extended by slides. So your movement here is going to be very critical. The better your movement, the longer you can make this first flash last. What I recommend, even for an intermediate runner, to get as many slides in there as possible, jump up these stairs, jump up here. Now make sure you're hitting these switches again. You can do a smaller jump to hit this thing, but just be very careful, because if you miss this jump, I've had it happen to me once in a while where I actually got a slide instead of a jump and I slid off this ledge and died. So just make sure you're hitting this switch before you slide on. You can slide off these steps. I recommend just jumping off this one, hitting that switch, sliding, sliding. Like, it's basically just a movement screen, like trying to move as much as possible. Now, I recommend that you try to slow down here, because likely the room is going to unfreeze somewhere in this section. And this is the scariest part of the whole room. It's the big jump. It's got the enemy here, and this rock could come down. So I recommend just getting ready for this room to unfreeze here. And when it does, just refreeze it as soon as possible. And then slide jump, you'll hit the switch, shoot this guy as you go down to reduce a little bit of lag. And it gets rid of him in case he moved a little bit close here. If you are really worried about that enemy moving over and you getting hit by him, when you refreeze the room, just jump up and shoot him and then jump across. That's always an option. And then once that room has been refrozen, this room is free, because it's just land there and slide all the way into the door. So it makes the room really easy because it freezes all the enemies in place. It reduces some lag and prevents the rocks from falling. But just be aware of your movement, because your movement will tell when the Flash Stopper is going to wear off. Okay, and so now we're just back into the Drill Man fight. So just like before, we're going to do the same 4 buffer jumps. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now here comes Drill Man. So I'm going to jump to the right. I'm going to do my pause again. Here he's out of the ground. So my first hit is when he's still coming out of the ground, just like we talked about in the beginner tutorial. That means his iframes will wear off before he does another action, so I can jump up and shoot him a second time. Now this time I get bad RNG. He doesn't walk or jump, he's doing another dive. So now, as soon as his sprite disappears, I start my buffer jumps again. 1, 2, 3, 4. There he comes as I jump away from him, turning to get the first hit in, and then jumping up to get the second hit in. And I get a little bit better pattern. He jumped over here, so I get my third hit in, and I tried to get him again, but he's giving me another dive. So back to buffer jumps. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here it comes. I hesitate a little bit there. There's the first hit as he comes out of the ground. Second hit before he goes back into the ground. Gives me another jump, so I get a third hit in, and he gives me a bad pattern again. So now that he's at 4 HP, you notice the dive missile does 3 damage to him. That means he's going to die in 2 hits. Now, ordinarily, I would go to a wall, one of the walls, to do my buffer jumps so that I can get max hits in and hope he walks all the way across. But since I know he's going to die in 2 hits, and I get 2 hits every cycle, I want to kill him in the center. So now I'm going to stay near the center this time. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, and jump away. And there's the hits, the 2 hits before he can do another action. So the buffer jumps become very important, as you can see. Whatever, again, just like I mentioned in the beginner tutorial, whatever you decide to do for timing, just as long as it's consistent, it doesn't matter what it is, as long as you know what it is. It could be something as simple as just counting in your head or counting out loud. It doesn't matter what it is, but just be aware of when he's going to come out of the ground. You need to be proactive at this so that you are getting more than 1 hit in a cycle. I want to talk about it a little bit now because I didn't mention this in the beginner tutorial, but since every dive costs you 4.3 seconds, roughly speaking, let's say it only costs you 4 seconds, just for ease of math's sake. The worst pattern you can get here is 5 dives, because of the extra 1 HP, since dive miss only does 3 HP. That's if he gives you a dive after every 2 hits. So you would get 2 hits in on the first cycle, then a dive, that's 6 HP, then 12, then 18, then 24, and then that would be 30 from that point. So 30 would kill him, right? Did I do my math right? 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27. Yeah, okay, that's right. So yeah, so you notice that it's 6, 12, 18, 24, and 30 damage. So that's 5 extra dives you could potentially have. Or no, sorry, 4 dives, sorry. I'm doing that wrong. Because the 5th dive is the first dive, which he does 100% of the time. That's not RNG, he'll do that every time. So you don't want to get all those extra dives, and typically you don't get that many dives, but you notice in this fight I got a lot of extra dives. I got 3 extra dives in this fight, so that's almost the worst RNG you can get, which means I lost roughly 12 seconds, a little more than 12 seconds, probably 13-ish seconds, to just RNG in this fight. And that's why, if you look at the splits compared to those beginner splits that I showed you at the beginning of the tutorial video, that's why my time in this, even though my stage was better, my time is worse just due to the pattern of the boss. So like I said at the beginning, typically you're not going to get more than 2 dives, but this is very reliant on you getting 2 hits per cycle. If you're not getting those 2 hits per cycle and you're only getting 1 hit every time he comes out of the ground, you're basically giving yourself so much risk. You could be potentially getting more than 4 dives. You could be losing close to like 20, 25, 30 seconds if you're only getting 1 hit as he comes out of the ground. So that's why I talked about the buffer hits being so important. Okay, so now that we know that Drillman's a pain and he can be a big chunk of RNG and a big chunk of time loss, and why this fight's important, now let's go into the advanced strats of the stage. We're going to be looking to optimize the stage, again, into some really scarier slide jumps in a couple spots, and trying to do that boss fight really tight, keeping him in iframes to try to minimize the time the fight lasts. Basically, the idea behind that boss fight is just to kill him as soon as possible, because the risk of time loss if he gives you another dive. But let's watch the advanced strats here, and then talk about the minor changes. This is going to be very similar to the intermediate strats. Okay. Okay, let's go talk about most of these screens. So this is going to be pretty quick. There's very minor... The differences between intermediate and advanced are pretty small, so this first screen is going to be pretty much exactly the same, except instead of killing the... We're going to go underneath this copter head. So remember before I jumped out of my slide here and I shot this copter head and then I killed the Met as I jumped up? This time I'm not going to kill this guy. I'm actually going to go underneath him. So instead of jumping up here to kill him, I'm just going to slide a little forward just to manipulate the Met to open up. Then I'm going to jump up to kill the Met. Then go underneath this guy by jumping up a stair and squeezing between him and this step here. And then I kill that Met there. I don't think it's overly necessary, but I do anyway. Now, this guy can do a few different things. He can open up sooner rather than later, and then it's really easy to do this strat. He can open up really late, which is, again, makes it really easy to do this strat. Or he can open up at the time he opened up here. And that makes this strat very tight. You can always make it, but you do have to have good movement. So when I kill this first Met here, I have very minimal time to jump up here because I don't want to jump too high and get hit. So I have to do a very short jump so that I can land right away and then jump here really quickly before he comes into the right and blocks my path. So it's very tight timing, but it's a little bit faster than the other because you don't do a big jump up to kill this guy. But it does require you to have really quick jumps here. And if you're struggling with that, then I recommend just doing the intermediate strat. Again, getting that frame perfect movement because I paused on the ladder. Freezing this guy again, just like before. This room is almost identical. Again, there's a minor difference. So before I froze the room as soon as this guy opened, I still do that. But instead of jumping up and freezing him and then jumping up, freezing him and killing him and then jumping up, I'm going to do it in one fell swoop motion. So you notice I froze him as he opened, but instead of landing here and then jumping up and killing him and sliding through, I'm going to land here right in front of him, and then I'm going to bullet slide through him so that it's sort of like one fell swoop. I jump up, freeze him, and then bullet slide through him. Then I'm still going to deboost here, still going to slide through and let go here. Now, remember the last two times we got good patterns from these bats. This time I'm going to get a bad pattern. So notice I still did the big jump manipulation, but the bat didn't open. So now I've got to slide into the bat, take the deboost, slide off the ledge, and if you're really quick, you can do a really short jump here and keep your invincibility frames through this bat and beat him. If you're really scared of doing that because it requires a very tiny jump here over these spikes, then what you can also do is you can jump up to the bat and turn left and back damage boost on the bat and get knocked either onto here or back down to the spikes. And if you fall down here, just jump up here and slide over. But if you do have a really tiny jump, you can actually beat this bat with your iframes. But it does require a really tiny jump. So it's a little risky because of the spikes, but if you're going for a very good time doing these advanced strats, it's definitely worth going for. Okay, and again, I moved over here a little bit, probably more than I needed to, but just showing again that you don't want to be hugging this wall because you will fall in the spikes. Just a little bit over to the right here, and that allows you to safely land on this ledge and jump across. Again, same strat, jumping into this room. Same strat again, freezing the room before this copter head spawns. We're going to jump underneath him, bullet slide again, just like we did in the intermediate. Bullet slides again there, and into this screen. Okay, so in the previous two tutorials, I talked about mashing B to freeze this room. The downside about mashing B is you will probably shoot a couple shots and be held on this ladder. Now what I want you to try to do is to practice timing your shot. You want to time this B press for the frame that this screen becomes active. Now, the visual cue for this is going to be different depending on how you play the game. If you're playing on emulator, you want to watch this little line. Basically, it's the bottom of this platform. When this hits the bottom of the screen, it's basically the start of the next screen. That's when the screen becomes active. So you notice as soon as that hit the bottom of the screen became active. That's when I flashed it. So I'm only pressing B one time. I'm going for that press so that it'll be perfect, right? If you're playing on a CRT or like a TV and there's different cutoff, this could be a different visual cue for you. Like I know on my TV, my actual visual cue is this black line here. I actually have to aim for this one. So it's very dependent on your TV, and everybody's will be different. But if you're playing on emulator, it'll always be that bottom. So as soon as you see that hit the bottom of your screen, that's like the timing. Press B, and that should freeze this room just like this. If you do fail this room, the backup really is to there's a couple different backups. One, if you press B too early and the screen doesn't freeze and they shoot bullets, don't press B again. Just let the bullets come to you, and you can actually just slide off this ledge, get hit by the bullet, slide across with your iframes, jump up here and climb the ladder. It's a slower backup because you have to climb this ladder really far, but it's a pretty safe one. The other one is if you miss it early, once this bullet clears you, you can jump up here, jump over this guy, turn and back damage boost through this guy, and then jump up here with your iframes, slide up, and jump and grab the ladder and move on. That's a little faster. Or if you freeze the room late, and he has a bullet on screen, then what you want to do is jump up, get hit by the bullet, you'll fall down, jump back up with iframes, and then do the same strat. Jump up, turn backwards, or just turn right, get hit again, jump up here and slide through and go. That's still faster than sliding across these spikes and grabbing the ladder. So there's a few different backups in case you miss it. But ideally, you time the shot right as the screen goes active again, and then you can just progress the screen, jumping up, sliding, jumping up, sliding, and jumping and grabbing the ladder. So again, you want to be trying to maximize your slide time. Even though there's spikes down here, it's scary, but if you're going for a really good time, you're going to want to be doing optimal movement as much as you can. This room is exactly the same, 3 bullet slides, jumping up, mashing, trying to get those slides in as much as you can. And now this time, this room, once again, is going to be very similar to the intermediate strat, but this time we're going to have our movement to be very, very precise so that we can try to actually make this entire room on one flash. So you see, I actually flash one slide later. In the intermediate one, I flashed back here. This time I do one more slide and I flash here. That gives me just a little more time to try to make this one cycle. Again, watching that these slides are very, very close together. I do a smaller jump here. You notice last time I jumped way up here to make sure I got this switch. This time I did a really tiny jump and I just grabbed the switch barely. Sliding off here. Now watch how tiny this jump is. I only clipped the bottom left corner of this switch. You notice I'm already landing on this platform before it even becomes visible, and I'm sliding again. So if you want to do this in one cycle, you do have to do some stuff like that. So it can be a little scary, but if you know the platform's there, you can go for it. Sliding off there again, it's basically just chaining slides together so that you can keep this flash stopper active and abuse it as much as you can. And then you see as soon as I land, sliding again, the enemies don't even unfreeze, and I make it all the way to the door. So this fight again, exact same thing as I've talked about many times. One thing I will show you is this is the one audio cue I actually have in the entire run. So if you listen to the music, now as soon as this next beat happens, so it goes dun 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 dun, and then the next dun. That's actually the beat that Drill Man will come out of the ground. Now, this is only true if you don't pause in this room. Obviously, if you pause and change to dive missile in the room, that will obviously change. But if you change when I do, which is I jump and then I pause after he's already coming out of the ground, that won't affect it. So you notice in this fight, for the beginning of it, I didn't do my buffer jumps because it's the one audio cue I do have for this game. I change to dive, again, I get my 2 hits in. He gives me a run pattern, which is really good. And again, I'm trying to jump and force the missile down into his hitbox like we talked about. And I get another walk pattern, which is also good. Just again, finding that time to jump over him and then follow him, jumping up and shooting the missiles down into him. So I'll go back and just sort of like let this one play out here. So he's in the ground. There's my cue right there. Jump, turn, shoot, turn, shoot, turn, shoot. It just takes some practice to get comfortable with this jump and pressing B and letting the missile track down into his hitbox. So yeah, there's the most RNG stage in 8 Robots for sure. And There's not a whole lot else I can really say about it. A lot of this stage is just abused by flash stoppers. So just like the previous stages, if you can get good at the movement, the stage becomes very trivial very quickly. So hopefully these 3 different ways of looking at the stage can help you consistently get through it, and hopefully get through the boss fight a little easier. Because again, this boss fight, even if you can do this fight and you have the buffer jumps, you can lose a lot of time here. So it's so important to be able to do this fight well. I recommend a lot of extra practice in this fight just because the potential to lose time here is very high. So if you do the fight poorly, you're just basically opening yourself up for more time loss. And you don't want to be losing an extra 4.3 seconds in a run to like an extra dive or an extra 2 dives. You could lose 8.6. It's just so much time. It adds up very quickly. So I recommend putting a little extra time into this boss fight as opposed to even some of the other ones, just because it is really critical to get the hits in correctly. And if he gives you those dives where he jumps up and then dives again, you need to be getting those 2 hits in before he dives again. You don't want to be missing a shot in there. Okay, so that sort of wraps up this tutorial. We got 1 more robot left. We got Toadman. And then that's 8 robots, guys. So really glad. I hope that I've been able to help people out with learning this game. And really excited that 8 robots here is coming to a close. To see the final sort of completion of the entire 8 robots will be really nice. So thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time.